Hello and welcome to SpriteGuard Plays Protoshift. This is a game that I had kind of seen kicking around on Greenlight and Itch and looked a little bit interesting, but the developer actually contacted me and asked me to play it on the channel, and so I decided I would give it a shot. I've played a little tiny bit of it so far, just to get a handle on what it's like, and it's kind of a neat survival minigame so far is what I have seen. So let us see how deep it goes. There is a warning that comes up before the point where I started recording that says if you have any problems with photosensitivity, you might want to give this one a skip. It does have some flashing lights. So that is a warning. And so we're going to go into this. We're starting out with everything locked, and except for the training difficulty. Not really a fan of that. I generally don't like it when games lock off their options. So I'm controlling the main character with the mouse, and we can actually move pretty much as fast as the mouse can move. So I'm kind of flailing around, not doing a very good job, because I wanted to show you that we basically don't have any restriction on how fast we can move. It's basically the mouse pointer. And we just have to weave through these bars, and they're going to kind of twist and turn around us, and then we can pick up these pickups, like this one actually allows us to break through walls. And we just have to survive as long as we can. I have not been able to figure out what the clock does. If it slows down the movement around us, it does so in kind of subtly enough that I haven't really noticed it making a huge difference. But the, okay, so this is a glitch that I've noticed that is kind of amusing, is if I move the cursor off screen a little bit, it actually disappears, and so this game is pretty early on in development, it seems. There's still, the email describing the game kind of gave me a rundown on what features are not working, and when you start this up, it actually talks about a few other missing features that are yet to be implemented, which I am kind of... I can't tell whether I'm in a minority or a majority regarding this, but I really like that we are able to play unfinished games and that they are so common. And a lot of the reason that I feel that way is because of the kind of the lost games and lost movies that I have known about. Probably the most famous example of a lost movie is... the movie Metropolis was lost for a very long time, and I was actually really lucky to see the premiere of the final reconstructed version that they've put together. They put together, I think in 2010, they found like an hour of missing footage, and they'd kind of over the years been piecing together different prints of the movie, had different parts of it remaining, but there was never a complete copy of it surviving. I think after the originals were destroyed in a fire. And so I was kind of really present for the reconstruction, a lot of the reconstruction of that movie that happened between 2008 and 2010, and I was trying to get that shield, and I did not manage to do it. So this game is pretty challenging. We actually have to survive a minute and a half in order to unlock the next level, and I have not been able to do that. So Metropolis is a lost movie that was kind of pieced together. It's still actually, the 2010 print is missing still about 5 minutes. And they think that that is just lost, and a lot of it is really badly damaged and really kind of scratched and blurry. So it's this really amazing movie that's one of my favorite movies of all time. So what does that have to do with games? Well, lost games are kind of even more lost than lost movies. There was a game a little while back that Nerd Cubed actually gave a bit of press called Wildfire Worlds. And there was kind of an early prototype, and they were working on a full version, and the lead developer died. and apparently he was the only one with certain passwords that they needed to continue work on the game, and so they stopped working on it, and that game is just lost. But there is this one surviving piece, this early preview build that some people managed to download. And so, because it was kind of at the forefront of the whole unfinished games movement, there is a surviving piece of this really unique and interesting and wonderful game. And there are other games that have not even had that. For instance, there's one called Noctis. Noctis 4 is, I covered on this channel actually, is one of my favorite games. And Noctis 5 has kind of been in development since 2000 when Noctis 4 was released. 111, so we're still quite a ways from being able to unlock the next part of the game. So, Noctis 5 has been in development for close to 15 years now, at least 10 years, I'm not sure exactly the timeline. And it has not been released in any form, and it's not clear that the developer is still working on it. Another really famous lost game is The Last Guardian, which Fumito Ueda made one of the greatest games of all time. That's kind of spoken of in reverent tones as Shadow of the Colossus. And that game was really revolutionary in a few different ways, and still holds up today as a great game. And it was announced in 2010 that he was working on a new game called The Last Guardian. And then nothing was heard from them. And then it was announced that Ueda was leaving Sony and would not actually be working with them. And then it was released just at this last E3. They announced that Sony is actually still working, and I don't know if Ueda, I assume Ueda is still working on it. But basically it was just announced that it's going back into production. But that's another game that for a long time seemed like a lost game that had a lot of promise that just nobody would ever get to play. And so, for me, this rising tide of unfinished games being released is a really great thing, because it means that I can play these games that might not ever be finished, and I can see them in some form. And a lot of my favorite things are unfinished. One of my favorite novels is an unfinished novel from the 17th, 18th century, sometime around there. It's a Chinese novel that was finished by someone else based on notes, but kind of isn't really finished because the book is full of all of these, like, really complicated foreshadowing. And we know that some of the stuff that was foreshadowed never happened. And Gala, the person who finished it, didn't actually include that. And so we know that there was stuff that was planned that never actually happened. And I've always just had an appreciation for unfinished works. It's something that I've always really liked. You know, I talked about Metropolis being one of my favorite films. Even in I first saw it in the 2008, the Murnau Kino print that was pieced together from a few different prints. And then the Argentina print is the one that came out in 2010. And that one was so badly damaged that it took them several years to get it to this point that they decided was ready for release. And that version was so badly scratched that it was almost unwatchable. But I really love that movie, and I really love it in the form that we have it in. And so that has informed the way that I think about unfinished works, that a lot of my favorite works are unfinished, and that I love unfinished things. I have talked a lot on this channel about unattainable things, and kind of the things that are left just outside of your imagination. And so I think for me, a lot of the appeal of unfinished things is that sense of the unattainable, that sense of potential, and sort of just imagining what that potential is. And so when I'm playing this game, I'm seeing, it's kind of this mini game where not a lot goes on, and there's only a couple of different power-ups, and there's just, it turns left and it turns right, and you move the mouse. And I think about, where is this going? Where could this, what could be coming out of this? Or is there something that's already here that I'm not seeing? And I know that has happened in the past. It happened with Starseed Pilgrim, of my not knowing quite how much was in it and kind of underestimating it many times. And then it happened with Zenith, actually. I played it for a long time not realizing that there was a whole underground city, and that there were all sorts of things that were actually in the game that I just didn't know about until I started looking at walkthroughs and doing my attempt to 100% it. And I still don't know, there may actually be something that happens when you get the 50th capsule, and I couldn't find it, and I didn't find looking for it fun, so I stopped. So this game that I'm playing, there's not a lot going on, but it's got this kind of really relaxing... A lot of instant reset games kind of have this very hypnotic, relaxing feel that I really enjoy. And so there's kind of, on top of the imagining where this game could go, what could be in store in the future, there's also this kind of just chilling out and playing a challenging but relaxing game. And that has actually brought back our icons, so picking up the snowflakes apparently restores us if we get that glitch. That's good to know. And oh my goodness, I looked at the time and that made me crash, but I was just checking to see if I had accidentally unlocked level 2. But that's kind of... That is where I kind of disagree with the developer of this game, is just in... I would rather play the feudal level for 3 seconds than play this level for a minute and a half, just because of my love of the unattainable and my love of the kind of being pushed beyond my limits. I really like games that kind of present that immense challenge. Geometry Dash is a great one, and kind of the prequel to it, which was actually called The Impossible Game, where 3 seconds into the game I would lose, and then I would try again, and then I'd make it 4 seconds, and then I'd make it 5 seconds, and I would kind of go through it like that. I remember the first game I played like that was Bangayo Spirits, which was a DS game that had a whole bunch of different modes and different puzzles, and some of them were kind of more relaxed block-pushing puzzles, and then some of them were you would start it up and die instantly, but you would be able to see just in that flash, oh, there was something coming at me from above, so I'll start it up again and immediately hold left when the game starts up. And then you would hold left and you would go to the left and you would hit something else and you would blow up. And then you would think, okay, so I need to hold left for a little while and then press up. And you would kind of gradually push yourself through this game. And I may actually be kind of exaggerating it. I know that memories tend to distort how challenging things actually are and how things actually play out. But that was my memory of it, and that was kind of... has become the benchmark to which I hold very challenging games. And so I would rather play something like Mushihime-sama Futari or Danmaku Death, where you're just pushed and pushed and pushed right from the start, rather than having to kind of wind my way up through the levels of difficulty. But I also recognize that a lot of people have exactly the opposite feeling, and I know that it can actually be a very sound business decision to actually have locked items in your game, because the sort of the psychology of game development is not something that I totally understand, and it's something that I often am the exception to, but it's very common when you're designing a game like this that people will pick the game up, try the hardest difficulty, lose right away, and go, that's too hard, I'm not going to play it. And so you have to lock off the later levels so that people will not kind of have their arrogance be their downfall, and not have to kind of because what a lot of people will do is they'll go, oh, I don't need the tutorial, I'll just play it on hard because I'm good, and that arrogance ends up making them not enjoy the game. And so I recognize that there actually is a sound business need for doing that, even though I dislike it personally. So that is kind of my impressions of Protoshift. I think it has a lot of potential. I think it's really kind of relaxing and enjoyable, and I'm really interested to see where this goes, what the developer has in mind for the future. I'm really, I'm intrigued, and I think that it feels like it's not really there yet. It really feels like I'm not enjoying it to the amount that kind of sucks me in. Like, I'm enjoying it. I'm gonna, give it an endorsement and say this is worth checking out if you like this kind of game. But I don't actually see myself picking this up again and playing it kind of as I idle. I know that there are a lot of instant reset games that I do feel that pull for, and I'm not really sure what it is that this game is missing that would create that. I think it may just be the difficulty curve is not steep enough for my taste. It may be that more power-ups would make it more compelling. I think that there are a lot of ways that this game could grow in the future, and I don't know that it even needs to grow, because like I said, I am very different from the way that from most people who play games, and I have a very different way of approaching, and I have very different things that I want from them. So I think by this point I have at the very least given you a sense for whether or not you want to look deeper in this game. And so, I recommend that you decide for yourself, because this is so much, I can tell, going to be something that is going to be your own decision whether or not you think this is worth investigating further. So I'm really glad that I could share this with you. I really enjoyed sharing it with you, and I think it brought up some interesting ideas. And so thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.